Welcome back to another episode of the Sky Society podcast. Today, I am chatting with Jessica Huff Walters. She is head of organic social media at Burbo, which is part of Expedia Group. So welcome, Jessica.
Thank you. It's so great to be here.
So great to have you on the podcast. We're going to go through Jessica's career journey from pursuing a career in journalism to then starting to go into social media, which is where she is now. But before we jump into all of that, can you tell me a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, I'm from Houston, Texas, went to the University of Texas at Austin for 4 years. Special place to me. It's where I met my husband,
Oh.
and originally was pursuing journalism, and moved to Washington, D.C. for a few years to pursue that career, and then ended up switching into social media marketing. And yeah, that's about it.
Amazing. So now working in, or before we get into your role at Expedia, I gotta ask you, since you work in travel, have you done any fun trips this year? Or do you have any fun trips coming up?
Oh my gosh, this year I went to Italy with my dad and my stepmom and my husband.
Oh,
My dad he's a super hard worker and has been saving for retirement every penny and doesn't really spend money on himself or on travel. And after the pandemic, I convinced him, YOLO, you only live once. Let's go to Italy. He's always dreamed of going there. And so it's his first big international trip, and
oh.
we all went to Italy together. My dad is one of my best friends. So it was such a magical getaway and just really special, making all those memories with family.
That is so incredibly special. I'm so glad you were able to convince your dad to do that. I know so many people whose parents or work so hard, save so much, but feel guilty spending it or won't actually
Yep.
spend it on themselves. So I love that you were able to have that memory and experience with your dad. Where in Italy did you guys go to?
A little bit all over the place. We started in Lake Como. We went to Genoa, and then this little beach town called Camogli, which was a dream, and then Florence and Rome.
You guys went all over.
Yes, yeah, we spent 2 weeks and just train hopped all the way from the top of Italy down to Rome.
Oh, how amazing. And did your dad love it?
He loved it. I think he really thought Italy was all like spaghetti and meatballs, and he just had this like very stereotypical picture of Italy in his mind. And so seeing all the different regions and the different cultures and cuisines between the Italian regions, he was just like mind blown by it and really enjoyed it.
I think it's when you do travel to a new place, Italy, for example, and you get to not just go to like one city or the main place everyone goes to, we actually get to explore the entire country. I think that's even more special because, like you said, there's so many nuances that us as like, American tourists maybe have a different stereotype in our head, but it's similar as if to like someone went to California and they went to LA or San Francisco or San Diego, it would be entirely different experiences. And, we know it because we live there, but someone's just like, oh, LA
Exactly.
is California.
Yeah. My dad thought Italy was just all the same. And I was like, no, it's so like rich in like different nuances throughout each city
Yeah.
and region.
And the food, my
Oh,
favorite.
to die for.
Out of all the places I visited, like the food in Italy, nothing will ever top that. And
Same. I've yet to go anywhere that beats Italy.
yeah, food there is amazing. Okay, so we're gonna take a little bit of a we're going on the time machine and we're gonna go back a little bit before you ended up here doing social media at Expedia Group. Let's go back to you graduating from UT and deciding that you wanted to pursue journalism and you wanted to pursue it so much that you were going to move to go and make that dream happen. Can you tell me a little bit about what this time post grad looked like for you?
Yeah. I have wanted to be a journalist since I was in first grade.
Oh my
So I thought
gosh.
this was like my calling in life. I truly thought I was meant to do this. And was very passionate about it, worked for the school paper, did all my internships in journalism. And so I was really excited when I got a job offer at Politico in Washington, D.C. I got the job, obviously through hard work, but I was really lucky and had a professor who knew somebody at Politico and recommended me. And I remember just not even knowing how much money to ask for, or, like I was totally clueless. And I'm really thankful for all the professors that mentored me at UT, because they helped me from like every step of the way through the job application process, because I truly didn't know what I was doing. And so yeah, I met my now husband at UT, and I just told him, hey, I love you, but I'm pursuing my dream. You either got to come with me, or we're going to have to go our separate ways, unfortunately. And
Really? And did he come? He came with you, I'm assuming, because he's your now
yep, he
husband.
came right with me. He works in the beer industry. So he was like, I can sell beer anywhere. I want to be with you. So let's do it. And we
Oh.
went on that grand adventure.
Can you tell me a little bit about that decision? Because I think it's really scary when, you're from Texas, met someone that you care deeply about, and you guys had your life there in Austin, and you deciding that you're going to move and you're going to make this happen. And obviously, I'm sure there was some risk in telling your partner that at the time of like, this is what, I need to do for myself. Was it scary to make that choice, or what was that like for you?
I think I was just so passionate about what I wanted to do that it gave me the confidence to make that choice. I was scared. I'd never left Texas before. I grew up in a small town outside of Houston. Austin was as big as it got for me city-wise. And but I just knew that I loved writing and I loved journalism, and that gave me the passion, like the excitement and the bravery to say, okay, I'm going to make some big changes here and pursue my dream. And I might lose somebody in the process, but I'm young and this matters more. And I'll find somebody who supports my dreams if they don't support them now, which very luckily he supports all of my dreams. So
Yes, you very, very lucky in that aspect. And that's awesome that he was just as excited and wanted to support you in your dream. And I think that's a very, very special thing to find. And it's very rare that on the podcast, we talk about relationships as well, but I think that it is important within your career, because when you are working with a partner, you each have to have like some give and take when it comes to, when each of you get to pursue your goals, and being able to, align that when you can, and work together.
yeah. And I think it's just when you're that young, it's different. And I would definitely advise like women to put their career first. Like I said, I think, I was confident enough to know that if he's not the one for me now, somebody else will be down the road. And I wanted to put my career first. And I definitely recommend that for other women.
And for you, it looks like you had some success in this space, because you were at Politico for just under 2 years before moving to Washington, D.C., and working at a national journal, and then going on to McClatchy for almost 4 years. So can you tell me a little bit about your growth within this space within DC, and what that was like for you?
Yeah, so whenever I was in college, I wrote a lot for online publications and did internships where I was managing the website. Social media was very new at the time. And so I was managing social media accounts for local newsrooms and doing articles on the side. And when I got to Politico, which at this time they're a rising star in the journalism community. They're relatively new. They're a big digital first publication. They even also were just like, hey, I'm going to hand you this, 22-year-old, our Twitter account and our Facebook account, have at it. which I was very fortunate that they did that. And so that's kind of what started my side hustle of working on social media in addition to pursuing a career in journalism. And I ended up really loving it, just figuring out how to like get all of those viewers to read and watch our content. I just found that really exciting and fun to connect with them in this online space. And so I ended up kind of switching from wanting to be a reporter to staying in this very new digital audience development field that was really emerging at the time in the journalism industry. It hadn't really existed before. And so I was kind of entering in somewhere where there weren't really defined job roles yet. Salaries weren't really defined yet for this. Career paths, there wasn't a clear path forward for where I would go next yet. So a lot of unknowns, but it was really exciting and really fun. So I decided, what the heck, let's do this. Let's. And so that's how I moved into more audience development and social media while I was in journalism.
Was there any hesitation around going back to that first grade you who wanted to work in journalism so much and leaving that dream behind?
Yeah, that was really tough. I thought that I was betraying my dream for a little bit whenever I first got a job as a web producer at Politico, but everybody kept telling me it's an in. You're getting your foot in the door. And so start off as a web producer and then write on the side, and eventually you'll become a reporter. And even though I did get to write a little bit as a web producer, it didn't get me as excited as what I was doing with the website and with social media. And so slowly over the course of the few years that I was at Politico was when I started letting go of this idea that I had to be a reporter, that I had to write to be a journalist. So that was a tough 2 years, like figuring that out.
Yeah, I can imagine, especially when, some people are like you where they have an idea in their head of what they want to be when they're very young. And so giving up on that, I can imagine, is very, very scary. And it takes a lot of like trusting your gut into what you know is right. And not only did you just like give up, maybe that dream, but also you went into a space that was, social media at this time was so new, it wasn't even a real thing yet. So it was also a risky place to then take your career because, now obviously it's established and is a genuine career path, but back then it really wasn't as much of that.
Yeah, there was just this huge need and like pressure to get eyeballs on your content. The news industry was not doing great while I was there. And they were really pushing for clicks and views. And I just became really fascinated with what makes people care about journalism, what makes people care enough to stop what they're doing and read an article. And that's what I became passionate about, is getting the journalism to the reader instead of actually writing the stories.
Oh, okay. That's an interesting transition. And so still connected within that space, but you're maybe not the one writing it, but you're the one making sure that it gets seen and that it gets read.
Exactly. And that felt really important at the time because, again, the news world was really struggling with the internet and people not paying to read news. And, there's so much competition between news outlets. And it felt really good to say, I was able to get you X thousands of readers because I wrote a really cool headline and tweeted it out and tagged the right people. I felt like I was really getting journalism into the hands of people who needed it and would make a difference in their lives.
That's beautiful. And I think a very incredible transition to see from that, or an evolution of that current dream, and really fitting into how you grew and what you were passionate about and the work that energized you. What from your journalism background, so you're then starting to make this switch into social media, what do you think you took from journalism, or how did your background in journalism really help you be successful in social media?
I think that knowing that it's about people first, and what gets people interested in something, that transfers not only to social media, but now to my current job in marketing. Again, trying to figure out, how do you get somebody's thumb to stop on their phone? How do you get somebody to take time out of their day to read something, pay attention to something? That understanding of that people's time is very valuable, and people's time, it's very competitive to get their time. Knowing that really fueled my success, learning that and understanding that.
So you were able successfully to build this career for yourself within social media marketing. And then you decided to go back to Austin. Can you tell me, did you get the job and then go back to Austin, or did you say, I'm going to go back to Austin and then figure out the job?
Yeah, so I was with McClatchy at the time, and they have 30 local newsrooms across the country. And one of them was the Fort Worth Star Telegram. And I just had this deep desire to go back to Texas. I missed my friends and family. I missed breakfast tacos.
Oh, yes.
And so I asked if I could go work out of the Star Telegram office, because my job, I traveled between all of the newsrooms, consulting and advising. So it didn't really matter where I was, because I was on the road the majority of the time. So that got my foot back into Texas. And then that allowed me eventually to start applying for jobs in Austin, where most of my friends were, and I wanted to be near them again.
Yes, well, first of all, breakfast tacos in Austin are a must. If you ever come to Austin, make sure you get the breakfast tacos. It took me a year until I got on the hype, and now I think I have them. I go to Taco Deli a lot.
Yes.
Too much. But definitely a good reason to move back. But I also think it's, and I ask myself this a lot too, because I'm not from Austin, I'm from California, I moved here. But it's, when you move somewhere new, you have to learn so much, and there's, you have to be uncomfortable, and it's such an incredible experience. But then I also think there's something really special about going back to where you're from, and once you've had that adventure and experience, and realizing that you really loved Austin and moving back. And Expedia, they have a really, really big, like, building and such in Austin, right? Like their headquarters
Yeah.
there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Formerly they were HomeAway, then we became Verbo. And they had we have a big office in the Domain. So it's one of our main hubs.
Yes. Do you go to the Domain a lot, or do you work remote?
All the time. We work hybrid, so I'm there
Okay.
at least 2-3 days a week.
Okay. Do you shop too much, or do you just
Oh my
go out
gosh.
to
My team knows when I'm like having a bad day. They're like, Jessica is going to Sephora today. We know it.
It's actually a very nice little mental health therapy break. Sorry, I need to take a break from my desk. I need to go buy myself some makeup or some skincare. Very
Exactly.
therapeutic.
Exactly. I enjoy it.
Yeah, when I moved to Austin, my mom and sister fell in love with the Domain. The Domain is a really nice shopping area, like in north of Austin, and they wanted me to move there so bad. But I was like, if I live here, I'm just gonna shop. Like,
Oh my gosh.
it's gonna be too bad. I'm gonna go out to eat all the time. I'm gonna shop all the time. Like, it's way too tempting.
Yeah, I would have way too many margaritas. There's a lot of Tex-Mex, a
Yes.
lot of taco places. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I would eat and shop way too much if I lived there. So I do not live in the Domain. I work there. I cannot live there.
Yeah. Definitely a must visit though if you do come down to Austin. Okay, tell me about your decision to go to Verbo, and what switching and doing social media there was like for you.
Yeah. Uh, the biggest motivating factor for me wanting to leave journalism was job security. At the time, there were a lot of layoffs happening in the industry. I was seeing incredibly talented people who dedicated their whole life to journalism being laid off and no matter how hard you worked or how talented you were, you couldn't keep up with the budget cuts, and people were being subjected to that. And it was really bad for my mental health. It was hard losing colleagues all of the time. Again, I was working across 30 newsrooms, so I just felt like I was losing friends and colleagues, weekly and monthly. And so because of that lack of job security, I started thinking to myself, well, what else can I do? Where else will my skills take me? Because I want a job that's more secure and pays well, and I can afford therapy because I need it at this point in my life. And so I was really looking for some job stability, both to keep my job and increase in pay and like good health benefits. And I know that sounds so boring, but I was at that point in my life. I was getting engaged. I was ready to get married. I'm wanting to settle down. And those things become really important. And, wanting to have a 401k, those things are, really attractive. And so that's why I started looking, was for really, not very sexy reasons, but very practical reasons.
I love that you brought that up, Jessica, because I think maybe a lot of people want that too, but are maybe scared to go out and say that. And you're right, they maybe aren't the sexiest reasons. But one of the things I think is really important, and I have an accelerator course, and one of the first things that I love to teach is just that what matters most typically when you're happy at your job is circumstances. I would say circumstance matters more than subject matter, and the circumstances that are going to make you happy are going to change depending on what you need in your life, and they're going to be different for each person, and they're going to be different depending on which stage in your life that you are. So even with you, we could see, okay, when you graduated college, you were like, I want to explore, I want to try new things, I want to take risks, and that was perfect for you at that time, and you did that. And then you realize, okay, now I'm at a stage in my life where I want more job security, and I want some stability, and I want some more, spending money maybe for, the different areas that you want your life to grow. And so I love that you were able to recognize that within yourself, and then also go and, and make that happen.
Yeah, there was a lot of guilt with that decision, because the original reason I wanted to be a journalist was to make a difference in people's lives, and empower people with information to spend their money in ways that support their belief system, to vote to be an informed voter. All of that was really important to me, and I felt really guilty leaving that behind for money, essentially. But then I had to tell myself, it's not just money, it's about your mental health. And my mental health needed to come first, and having a little bit more money, and having better job security was going to improve my mental health a lot.
Yes. And money doesn't just mean money. I always like to say money is also freedom. Sometimes for people, for you, maybe money was affording you to be able to invest in your mental health. And I think sometimes, especially with women, there's shame around the money piece too, or like you said, there's guilt around making that a priority for yourself. And I think, as I said before, it's different for each person, but at least I know for me is what I equate it with is freedom, of that having more money gives me more freedom over my time and over, how I get to spend it. And I think that's an incredible luxury to get to have or to want to work towards. So you made the switch, and you went over to Verbo, and you started there as global social media editorial manager, and you are now head of social media, and you've been head of social media for almost 4 years now. So you've been there for quite some time. Can you tell me a little bit about what your role entails? I'm sure every day is different, but maybe just kind of like a general overview, or what a week in your life looks like.
Yeah. Well, when I first started, like you said, I was an editorial manager. And then that was kind of my connection between journalism and marketing. And so My background is content. My background is content strategy and how to get people's eyeballs on things. And I think my manager really valued that. And so when she decided to move on to another job, she called me the day that Texas was shutting down for the global pandemic for COVID and was like, hey, got some news. I am moving to another job and you're taking over the team.
Oh my God. So worst day plus best news.
Yes. I'm like, that's great that I'm taking over the team, but I'm sad you're leaving. And oh my God, you're leaving me during the pandemic.
That's crazy timing.
It was very crazy timing. So it's been a roller coaster. But things have calmed down now. And I feel like I've really gotten into the swing of things as a manager. I think that was I've managed people before whenever I was at McClatchy, but I think it was different because it wasn't as structured where you didn't have to play politics as much. Like everything was a lot more casual. Titles didn't really have a lot of meaning. There weren't a lot of formal like reviews or anything like that. This was my first time being in like a real corporate environment and managing people. And so I feel like honestly, it took the whole pandemic because I was managing people remotely. It like took a few years to just really get in the swing of things and be confident and really feel like I have ownership over my team. And so on what it looks like day to day, though, sorry, I'm going off on a tangent.
I'm glad you shared that piece. That was very important to the story. So I'm glad you
Yeah.
touched on that.
Yeah. Day to day, I have social media managers across the globe that I manage. They are in charge of taking our global brand campaigns and our global always on strategy and localizing it for their market and localizing the content to reach their audience. And so day to day, I'm reviewing content creators and influencers for our markets to use. I'm being briefed in on new product updates and big campaigns and figuring out, okay, how does this live and come to life on social media from the brand campaign down to again, the actual like execution on each social channel. And then how do I do that globally? How do I localize these pieces across multiple markets? So it's kind of a broad day-to-day of what I do.
So you do a lot and you do it for a very large social media following that is underneath your management. Can you speak? So you mentioned that you took over during the pandemic. One thing that was also synonymous with that was the rise and the growth of TikTok and video. And I know your team significantly grew Verbo's TikTok following. Can you speak to a little bit about that and kind of what you learned during that period?
Yeah, I was really lucky, and my manager and then her manager, they were these two amazing women, and they were like, how can we take Verbo to the next level? How can we be a little bit more bold in our marketing? How can we have more ownership over certain channels compared to our competitors? And everybody, like you were saying, was on TikTok at the time, and our competitors were not on TikTok yet. And so I went to my managers, I created a proposal, and I said, this is our chance to be the first on the platform, really claim ownership and show that we are the dominant brand in the travel space on this new platform. But in order for me to do this, I need investment from the company. I need money. I know I'm organic social media, but let's be real, social media is pay to play quite often. And I think it is very hard to grow a channel without any financial backing, and not even on just advertising, but we needed content creators and influencers to create content that felt authentic and relatable to our audience. And so getting that budget and getting that investment was a game changer for us. And that's why we were able to do what we were able to do, was we were given the money to do it. And that's very hard sometimes when you're organic social media, to get that budget that you're asking for. Sometimes companies can be very resistant because they look at paid social media and they see, you know, the number of bookings coming through and direct sales coming through from those lower funnel ads. And then they're like, well, how's organic social media benefiting us financially? What's the value of a follower? Can we assign a dollar amount to every follower we get on Facebook? You know, I can't tell you how many times I get asked that. But we finally had two leaders in the company who were like, no, this is about brand awareness. This is about investing in the brand, and the ROI might not be immediately clear. But now looking back, we have almost 2 million followers on TikTok now.
Wow.
And I think they are realizing, and again, we're the dominant brand in the travel space for our field for vacation rentals on TikTok. And again, I think that's because we got that investment and that support from leadership.
I can imagine how scary or nerve-wracking must have been to go and propose that. And I can definitely think a lot of people can relate to the struggle of asking for budget within social media or anything creative that's not directly tied to revenue. And we all we know, you work in social media, you know that you are influencing people's purchase decisions. It may not be right away, but they may, go click and buy from that ad because they first engaged organically, or because they were a follower, or because they saw a TikTok video, and that, helped them build their relationship before eventually converting. And so I know that struggle is so hard. And so many people, are constantly fighting for, for that budget, and trying to prove that their content has value. When you did go and make this proposal to your team, did you have anything specific in mind that you thought would sway them? Or, how did you overcome that fear of maybe being told no?
I'm told no all the time in organic social media.
You're like, I'm just used to it.
I'm used to it. Yeah. I don't really have a fear of being told no. It can be frustrating and discouraging at times, but I'm not afraid of it anymore. In fact, I was told no at first to TikTok. We had an amazing manager on the team that she actually tried to start our TikTok account before I did, before she left the company, was met with a lot of resistance, and it just didn't grow as quickly as we had hoped. So we'd been told no before. And so that was not a fear of mine. But what I felt like we needed was for us kind of to light a fire, was to walk our leaders through how other competitors were first on their platforms, on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. Mm-hmm. And that is what lit a fire under them, was realizing this is how our competitors got so far ahead of us. So let's go take that exact same strategy and apply it. And being first to some extent does matter. But like we said, we were on the platform for a whole year and we weren't really gaining any traction, but we had no investment. We couldn't pay content creators and influencers. We couldn't, put a ton of money behind boosting and running ads. And so it wasn't until we got that investment, and again, showing this is what we could do compared to our competitors, that really got leadership excited and thinking, wow, we could be innovative and really dominate a space. Let's do this.
Yeah, that's almost like a trophy, I feel like,
yep.
when you get to be the first. And so I think that's a very good incentive to share with them.
Yes.
All right. So you take over as head of social media, and you take a little bit of a year to work on building your management skills and to really feel comfortable in the role. Now that you've been there for some time, what is your favorite part about your job?
I think being a manager is my favorite part. I never expected that. I never dreamed of that growing up or in college. My goal was not to be a manager. Again, my whole goal was just to write and be a journalist. But I just realized in order to grow in my career, I was going to have to learn how to manage people. And so that's my favorite part day to day, is working with so many brilliant and creative people at my company. And some of those creative and brilliant people are like on my actual team, and I get to like see them grow firsthand. I think that's my favorite part.
I love that. That wasn't even something that you expected, but it grew into something that you really love and get a lot of fulfillment from, which is really, really incredible to hear. My other question that I have to ask you, so I'm currently booking a trip to Portugal, and I'm booking places on Verbo, and I am very, very into the whole travel thing right now. Do you have a travel tip for someone that's looking? It doesn't need to be related to your company, but just something that you advise as like a general travel tip.
Well, I will put a plug in for Expedia's new rewards program called One Key.
Yes. Actually, I'm booking through Expedia, not Verbo. With the One Key. Yes, I get my money back when I book my hotels.
Exactly. And so not only with hotels, but now you get points for booking with Verbo as well. So the points apply across Expedia, hotels.com, and Verbo. So you can use all three of those websites to mix and match your accommodations, your flights, car rentals, also tours and experiences, all of that through Expedia Group and its brands. And I know that's like a total plug again and I'm biased, but to have that ability and to get points across everything and have them in one place is really awesome. And that's how I've saved a lot of money traveling, is by committing to a rewards program and sticking with it. So that's my biggest travel tip, is pick your rewards program wisely and stick to it.
Is there a culture or does Verbo promote or encourage travel for employees, or is that like part of the company culture?
Yeah, we're given a stipend every year to go spend on travel. So it just has to be
Wow.
spent through Expedia and Expedia's brands. So I get paid by my own company to travel,
I
which
love
is
that.
amazing. And my manager and all the other managers that I know in a company are really encouraging about taking time off, making sure we're using all of our vacation time. We're always sharing tips and tricks and itineraries from each other's trips. So they definitely encourage travel.
I love that. I think there's a lot of people that there's different industries that are more popular than others, but a lot of people want to work in travel. And so I feel like this is a way where you can, maybe you're not traveling all the time for your job, but you get to work at a company that really values it, and where you get to be surrounded by that all the time, which I think would be really fun. Now that we've gone through Jessica Huff, from your journalism all the way to social media and your moves across America, looking back on your career, what advice would you give to someone who wants to have a career similar to yours?
I was told a lot in my career early on that I should just be thankful to have a job, especially when I was working for prestigious or prominent brands. And that is not true. You do deserve to be paid well and compensated well for your time and your hard work. And yes, you are lucky to have a job. Yes, we're all lucky to have careers that we're excited about and to work for really amazing brands. But that doesn't negate the need to be compensated well and to know that you deserve a great competitive compensation. And so again, that was part of also why I switched from journalism to marketing, was that Expedia really values their employees and compensates them well and is very transparent about their pay. And I just really advise, as you grow in your career, if you hear anybody telling you like you're just lucky to be with this brand or lucky to be on this team, it's a yes. And yes, I am lucky to be on this team, and I also deserve to be compensated well.
Oof, what a powerful way to end this episode. I love that advice. I wish someone would have told me that as well, because I think, like you said, when you got that first job, you're like, I had no idea how much money to even ask for, how much I was even worth, or was it even worth anything? And so I think that's just such profound advice to remember, is the yes and. Yes, you are lucky to have that job, and you deserve to be compensated well for that. And both of those things can exist simultaneously.
Yep.
Well, Jessica, thank you so much for coming on the Sky Society podcast and sharing your journey with me today. You have just been absolutely inspiring to chat with today. So thank you so much.
Thank you.